You get that, right? The things you own, your gifts, your talents, God gave them to you, and they're not yours, they're his, and you're supposed to invest them for him. And at some point, there's going to be a reckoning, and there's going to be some who come forward and say, listen, God, here's what I've been able to do. And for those of us who have been investing, using our talents, like, we can't wait for Jesus to come back. Come back right now. I mean, God, here's what I've done with what you've given me. Please, come back, please. But there are going to be some who, though they've been given all these things, they haven't done anything with them. And I want you to look with me at verse 30, what Jesus says about that person. Throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The very next parable he tells is one called the sheep and the goats. It says in verse 31 that when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he'll sit on his throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. I don't know what picture you might have in your mind of Jesus, but I suggest whatever it is, maybe this would be a good one to replace it with. Because for us, the very first time we're going to see Jesus face to face is going to be at a moment just like this. Chapter 26, there's this account. I love this account, by the way. Jesus has been teaching his disciples that he's going to be arrested, that he's laying down his life for us, that this is what's going to happen. And at one point, when the guards come to arrest Jesus, Peter, one of his disciples, takes out a sword. Do you remember this? And cuts off the ear of the servant of the high priest. And Jesus heals that man. He turns to Peter. I want you to see what he says in verse 53. He says to Peter, do you think that I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? It's like, Peter, don't you get this? Like, if I weren't willing to have this happen to me, I could call on angels, and God would give me 12 legions of angels who would destroy all these people. Don't you see how powerful I am yet? Later on in that chapter, Jesus is on trial before this religious council called the Sanhedrin. And at one point, the high priest actually stands up and he says, okay, Jesus, you've heard the charges. Do you say that you are the Christ, the Son of God? And I want you to look with me at verse 64. Jesus says, yep, it's just what you say. But I say to all of you who are here trying me, in the future, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. Like, okay, you see how things are now. You're putting me on trial, but I want you to understand something. One day, you're going to see me sitting at the right hand of God, the Father Almighty. When you look at verse 67, maybe in light of all that we've been talking about, this will have new meaning. When they're done trying him, they apparently at some point blindfold him. It says in verse 67, they spit in his face and struck him with their fists. Others slapped him and said, prophesy to us, Christ. Who hit you? This powerful Jesus just submitting to being spat upon, mocked, beaten, blindfolded. By the time you get to chapter 27, it just continues. He's now before the Roman soldiers. If you look with me at verse 28 of chapter 27, it says that these Roman soldiers stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand and knelt in front of him and mocked him. Hail, King of the Jews, they said. Verse 30 says they again spat on him. They took the staff from his hand and struck him on the head again and again. And after they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put on his own clothes and led him away to crucify him. In the light of everything we've just said, I mean, isn't this striking what Jesus allowed to have happen to him? He was crucified. People continued to mock him publicly as he hung there on the cross to die. His body eventually taken down, once dead, laid in a tomb, a stone rolled in front of it. Now we get to chapter 28. There were some women who followed Jesus. They went to memorialize him. They went down to the tomb. When they got there, that stone had been rolled back. There was an angel who was there who declared to them for the first time, he's not here, he's risen, just like he told you.